Hi guys, today's video is going to be long awaited for some of you. It's basically 4, even 5 years in the making at this point. I know you've got questions. Some of you feel that you can't ask the questions that you want to ask because you think it's going to be rude. Don't you worry. Someone else has asked those questions. So we're going to get into the entire house Q&A. I am 34 years old. I live with my parents. Why? What is happening? What are we doing moving forward? Are we moving? Are they moving? Are we staying here? Is this the plan? Every question you could possibly have, hopefully I'm going to answer in this video. So like I say, I know some of you are too polite to ask the questions you want to ask. I was going through and I was like, oh, I know what they want to ask, but they're not. And then I got the questions that I was like, yeah, okay, like, how much is your mortgage? I'm not going to answer that question. Every other question I was asked on Instagram, I am going to answer. I'm going to go through and pick. I can't really go in the order that they appear because it's not going to make sense to those of you that don't know the situation, but I will pick them and hopefully I don't miss any out. So this feels like a logical place to start. It's Nicola Ruth says, I've missed all the updates. You're not moving now, right? How are you feeling? And I got another one saying, are you still wanting to move or have you decided fully to buy your parents out? So this kind of like in a nutshell, effectively, we put the house on the market. We got a buyer, we found a house we liked, my mum and dad found a house that they liked, we were all set to move and the buyer pulled out. And at that point, I decided, because we were effectively thinking of moving earlier, a year earlier than the original plan, which I'll get to, I decided it was just too much stress because I was the one who was dealing with everything. I was trying to make sure everything was tidy, trying to make sure everything was clean, not all the rooms are mine, I can't control everything. Which is obviously an issue for me, and I just found it very, very difficult. It was very emotionally tough for me to be the one that was effectively affecting everybody else's lives. So when the buyer pulled out, the idea that that's not just me and the kids, that's just one family. It's also my mum and dad who'd had their heart set on a dream house that they'd found, and I just didn't want that. I couldn't deal with it. And I thought, even if we try and do this next year, it's still going to be the same thing. One buyer has an impact on 2 households and it's too much. And then the kids, we're showing them around a house. We're like, we've had an offer accepted. This is what we're going to do. And then it fell through and I just couldn't do it. And so we decided instead to stay where we are and extend our mortgage to buy my parents out. Now, I had another question. Jodie McIntosh asked this. Have you bought your parents out of the home's original value or new market value? Again, people asking all the questions that you didn't want to ask. That's a great question. So my mum and dad owned, like, I think I worked it out the other day, something like 23% of the house. So the difference of what the buyers were going to pay us and what the original market value was like £5,000. So it's not incredible. And the difference for mum and dad effectively pays what we have to pay towards the estate agent fees, because we had to pay them even though it didn't sell, because we chose an agent that did that, which in hindsight was a mistake, but would have saved us money down the line. So it's like nominal. It doesn't really make a difference, but we have decided to buy my mum and dad out. That's now a completely done deal. The mortgage has been secured and that's going to happen in the new year. Funnily enough, nobody asked why we moved in with my parents. But they did say, were you and your parents always going to stop living together, or did this not work out? And I thought that's kind of like a segue into an explanation of why all of this happened in the first place. So, and also someone asked a question. I'm trying to kind of like put them into categories. Do you think you'd have picked a different house with your parents if you knew you were going to stay there? So the original plan was, mum and dad needed kind of a buffer between retirement and pensions. We thought if we move in with mum and dad, then we will move into our forever home 5 years earlier than we would do if we were renting, because we were, well, not 5 years, but basically we were a few years away from having our deposit together for a kind of house that we would want to live in. And so it seemed like if we moved into a house that was going to be, well, this is the house we want to live in, then in the time that mum and dad lived with us, we could do that house up, make it what we wanted it to be. And then by the time mum and dad moved on to their next house, we would already live in the house that we wanted to stay in. Now, we kind of got quite far along this process of like selling mum and dad's house, looking for houses that we liked. and it was getting closer and closer and closer to Christmas, and we decided to have a new build because the new builders would buy Mum and Dad's house, and it just made the whole transaction smoother. That almost immediately I realised was a mistake because we compromised a lot on the original plan. The original plan was that we were going to move to an area that we wanted to live, which was closer to the kids' schools, and we ended up moving. It's not somewhere we don't want to live, it's just in terms of walking distance, everything's so close by. It's like 10 minutes as a drive. But we no longer were in that area, that premium or that prime area for walking to and from schools and stuff. And it just, almost straight away I thought, well, we're all going to move in 5 years because we want to move to that area so the kids can be like closer to friends from school. And that is why, although it was always a 5-year plan, that is why we always knew we were going to move after 5 years, because we thought, well, this is not actually the area we want to move into forever. We will sell up after 5 years and go our separate ways, and we'll move there. They'll move to where they were going to move to, and that's what we're going to do. So to answer the amalgamation of questions, this was always the plan. It was always kind of like end of working life buffer for Mum and Dad and a way of getting us into our house earlier. But in hindsight, that the part of it that worked for us was compromised pretty quickly. And that was me. I was just so stressed out with the situation. I was like, let's just please do something that makes this as easy as possible. And that was moving into a new build. The house is plenty big enough for us all. We ended up putting in some dividers in the kitchen area, so Mum and Dad had their own separate space, which was a great thing for us. My dad built his like man cave outside, so he had his like separate space as well. So they had plenty of space in the house. But it just wasn't ever the house that we were going to stay in, was the plan. And so when it came to this year and the stamp duty breaks, and obviously everyone having been on top of each other in lockdown, I was like, do you know what, let's just try and move this year, because the house price might be a little bit higher, which will factor in, you know, we've got another year's worth of savings to come in. Maybe we can make that back in selling it now, because people might pay more for the house because of the stamp duty, you know. That was the logic. Now, we actually put it on the market probably a couple of months too late, because around the time we put the house on the market, all the 10% mortgages disappeared, and it became more difficult to sell this price of house because purely of that. Like, even people moving on from previous houses needed 15 to 20% of the loan to value, which they didn't necessarily have. So that was frustrating. We did finally get a buyer. I mean, I say finally, it was like 7 weeks on the market, and we finally got a buyer, and we were like, that's great. We'd accepted lower than we really wanted to, so it was very tight to move into where we wanted to move into. Mum and Dad had enough money that they needed to move. And then when the buyer disappeared, I was like, right, I'm just going to look into affordability wise, whether or not we can stay here. We looked into it, everything worked out. We had the cash free to give Mum and Dad what they needed to move. And I do want to be clear, I haven't been given anything because, and this is definitely a trigger for me. When we talk about the house, I've been really defensive in the past, because I know that people have said things to me directly, and I know that people must be saying things out there about me. Someone had said something about how, I mean, I've spoken quite frankly about money recently, but how effectively the assumption is that I have put us in a position where we needed to live with my parents, and that was not the situation at all. We are not really tremendously better off now than we were 4 years ago. We are, because we've been paying into a mortgage, and so we've got some equity, but no one has given us any money. I just want to clarify that, because I do think there is a misconception. It just kind of got us on the property ladder, or back on the property ladder, earlier than we would have been. And now we've decided to stay. It's kind of frustrating, because if we'd known we were going to stay, we would have done some things that we've been putting off. But now we've decided to stay. It's just less, I suppose, turmoil for us, because we can just stay put and Mum and Dad are moving out. I think I found the natural progression questions. Are you secretly upset that you're not moving to a new house? Laura XO asked. I think that was not so secretly immediately, because we'd found a house that we really, really liked. The reason that we decided, I mean, like I said, we wanted to be close to the kids' schools. But while we were looking for houses, we were making allowances pretty early on of like, well, we found this house and this is really nice and it's a little bit further away, but we're no worse off now because we could still drive them to school. So that the house that we'd settled on, the house that we'd offered on, was perfect in terms of location, absolutely perfect. But the original plan was we wanted to be closer to walking distance to the kids' school. I realised pretty quickly, within the next 4 or 5 years, that's not really going to be an issue. It's not, because the high school here is like more central. It's not really going to be an issue at all. And so I'm not as upset as I thought I was going to be that we didn't move area. Now, the house, we'd wanted to move to a house that was smaller or lower, but like cheaper. We wanted to move to a house that was less expensive. We wanted to move to a house where I really had my heart set on like a 1930s semi-style. Yeah, we wanted to move to a house that was like, would have less bills effectively. Because this is a large house. It's a larger house than I thought we needed. All the houses we were looking at were all like semi-detached, smaller houses, and I thought this is going to be great. We're going to save a lot on bills. Now, our bills right now are not crazy, but we split them, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And I was thinking, well, do I want a big 4-bedroom house worth of bills for just us? I'd probably rather have that money in my pocket for us to go on like more holidays and things. And we wanted a smaller mortgage because we wanted to be mortgage free earlier. So that was like a big thing that played into it. But as we were looking at houses, our budget crept up and up and up and up. And in the end, the one that we offered on wasn't a million miles away in cost to the one that we're in. It was like £15,000 less than we paid for this house, but it was a lot smaller. The area was nicer, but it was a lot smaller. And it was a semi-detached house, whereas this is a detached house. And it was an older house, so potentially the bills would be higher. I think it probably would have ended up a similar situation, but as we've actually ended up with a lot more house. I've got all of the things that I wanted on my like dream house wish list, which is like an office space, a space that I can film, a space that I can actually do my regular office job from. A dining room, I can't explain to you the excitement of having a dining room. A dining room, the kitchen is lovely. When we open those doors, it's going to be a massive, like, there was such a big thing when we first moved into this house that the light in that room totally sold me on the house. Didn't really think about it because I never benefited from that. The light in the living room is not fantastic. I've spoken about this in vlogs before, but the light in the kitchen is just all beautiful and airy. And I'm really excited about having that as our space. The garden is really nice. My dad's put in that shed, which he's obviously going to leave because it would be difficult to transport. So that's like a benefit for us because we would never have put that in. It's like an outdoor building with like heating and light and everything. It's great. And I don't know what I'm going to use that as. But I was not so secretly upset initially that we weren't moving because I'd kind of got my heart set on this house that we found. But quite quickly I realised this is a much bigger house. We're probably not going to be paying all that much more in terms of like the difference. And we don't have to move. Plus we really, really like our neighbours. Is the current home your dream house? Another one, will that house be your forever home? If not, what would you like your forever home to look like? And I got another one. I can't find it. But it was another one asking about like whether or not eventually what would you change in your current house to make it your forever home? Effectively that kind of thing. So again, I don't think it's going to be our forever home, but I think it could be our home for the next 10 years. I think once I've got so many ideas for what I want to do with it because obviously I've lived in it for 4 years. I think it could be our home for a long time. Lee's not keen on moving anyway. But once we actually move into the rest of the house, yeah, I think not forever, but a long time. Will you change wall colours and put more stuff on the walls? So I got another question, which kind of made me laugh a little bit. Here we go. Always wonder why you kept everything white if staying for 5 years. You could always repaint. So again, it all felt very temporary. We all knew we weren't staying. Mum and Dad historically have had very bright colours on the walls, and I didn't want to have to repaint. It's a new house. It was going to be 5 years old when we sold it. I still wanted it to look fresh and it be a blank canvas for the next buyers. I was always mindful of resale. So anything that I did, I knew I was going to have to undo. And they're not small rooms. Like if mum and dad had wanted to paint their living area, it was a large job. And to then have to repaint that and make it white again to sell would have been a big thing. Same with the bedrooms and stuff. So because of that, it's not fair for me to say, well, we're not going to put bright colours on the walls, but I'm going to paint whatever I want. Nobody painted anything. That was the deal. We just left everything white. And I think even my dad now, who has been a big fan of colour in the past, is totally sold on the majority of the house being white because it was so easy to touch up. Little scuff marks here and there, so easy to touch up. And I'm going to leave most of it white. There will be some rooms that I'm going to change. I'm going to, in the kitchen, because we've kind of blocked it off, so I can just do a small amount of walls in there, because there's like a frame for some doors. I'm going to do that a dark blue, just as a bit of interest, because it moves into a very bright room. And the downstairs toilet, I'm going to do a little bit funky. Maybe our bathroom, I don't know. But the majority of everything we're going to keep white, just because it's just easy. And as you know, if you know me at all, I'm a commitment phobe when it comes to decoration. Will you be giving Lee a man cave? Lee's not really a man cave kind of guy, but I did think he might take the shed outside and make it into a gym. He can do whatever he wants. There's plenty of space, but I don't have to give him a man cave. He can take a room if you would like a room. This was the bills question. When moving in with your parents, how did you decide to split all of the bills? Water, gas, electricity, etc. Just down the middle. So although there's 4 of us, mum and dad were home all the time. I mean, at least my dad and my mum now, but not once upon a time. Whereas most people were like out of the house the majority of the time. So we split everything down the middle, like gas, water, electric, all of those things, Sky. And then we had our bills, which was the mortgage for the remainder. My life insurance, that kind of thing, would go out of the joint account, but that wasn't part of what was split. It was just like the very basic, like council tax, that kind of thing, was split down the middle. When I've mentioned doing this before, and in these comments as well, lots of questions about what we're going to do with this room and these wardrobes. So because we put these wardrobes in, I'm not moving those wardrobes, they're going to break immediately. Our bedroom with those wardrobes becomes the same size as Ella's bedroom. It's exactly the same dimensions. We had the 3rd bedroom of 4. Milo had the 2nd because he had toys and would still play in his room. Someone is ringing me. Hello? Lee is trying to get some money off our Sky bill. Our Sky bill was £134. What? I looked the other day and I said, we're going to move to Virgin because this is crazy. So I think he's been dealing with them and the call cut off. Anyway, and it's my account, so yada yada. So anyway, we're talking about these wardrobes. So because the room is pretty much exactly the same size, a couple of people had asked me if Ella was going to move into this room. It would make absolutely no difference to her whatsoever in terms of like space that she would have. It would make a difference in terms of storage, but because this is not going to be a bedroom, she can use these wardrobes for some storage as well. That's what we're going to do. There's going to be a whole wardrobe and a half because we've got built-in wardrobes in the master bedroom, which is mum and dad's room right now. I'm going to have all of these wardrobes and Lee's going to have all of those wardrobes. So I'm going to give some hanging space and some like storage space and stuff in here for Ella. So in the morning, she wants to come in here and get something. This is a room that she can use. It's also going to have desks in here. So if we want to kind of like the computers and stuff, if Ella wants to come in here and work like on some homework and stuff, this will be more of a communal room, is the plan. But no, a couple of people had asked, will Ella be moving rooms? She won't, just because it doesn't make sense. I'm editing this back now. I just want to throw in, it's messiness as well. I thought I didn't even mention it's messiness. When we were selling the house, I said to Ella, you've got basically 6 weeks to show me that you can have a larger bedroom and keep it tidy. And she can't. And when I was 15, was I 16 or 17? Around the age of Ella, we moved house and we had 3 bedrooms on the top floor. My brother got the biggest one. The second one was not used and I got the very smallest bedroom because I was so messy, so incredibly messy. There were no arguments. The second room was basically like a communal room, like another hangout room for us. And so what we planned to do in a previous house, in a next house, was have like a secondary sitting area for the kids. And Ella was always going to have the smallest room. It was up for discussion initially. And after I'd said show me you can keep your bedroom tidy and you can have a larger room. And it never happened. I was like, we're not doing this. So that is massively at play. And that's how my parents did it. And I thought that was fine. Again, in case you couldn't tell, the Ella situation is a trigger for me because I've had so many people over the years tell me that I don't love her as much as Milo, which is ridiculous. Because I don't show her as much on camera because she doesn't want to be shown on camera. And because I split her when she was small, 50-50 with her dad. And apparently that was some terrible thing that I did. So yeah, just want to kind of put it out there because I know people will wonder or people will think I'm being cruel or unfair. It's not a preference thing. Ella's with us most of the time now, but she's not having a larger bedroom. Even if the bedroom was larger for her to have, I would rather her spend time in communal areas that I can keep clean, and then she can do literally whatever she wants with her smaller room. Also, lots of questions about what we're going to do with my mum and dad's current living area in Snog. So they live in the dining room. Effectively, our house layout, if you haven't seen my home tour, is kitchen, and then it would be like dining area, and then it goes around the corner to a Snog. So there was a time where they had a dining table, which was theirs, and then they had the little Snog bit as their living space. It was just too small. It was crazy. Eventually, they conceded that the dining stuff needed to go in the garage. So the dining table went in the garage, and now they've got all of that space, which is like a living room's worth of space, for their chairs and their, all of their furniture. And then they've obviously got the shed outside, which is like a second living space. So once we put up doors, once they've moved out, I'm going to leave the doors because I quite like the doors as an option, but I'm going to have them open all of the time. And we will have a dining table. 34 years old, I've never had a proper dining table. I've always had little, in my first house, it was like two down, is that right? There were 2 bedrooms upstairs, and then the kitchen, and then a living room, not massive, but we had a little tiny dining table in there because Ella was small. You need a dining table. In the house I lived with, do you know what? The house that I first lived with Lee was a big house for us, but we didn't. I had a dining table. We never used it. I said this several times. I've never had a dining table. I have. We had a dining table in the conservatory. I forget that house had a conservatory because it leaked, it was rubbish. And then what was the dining room? I used to use as my filming room. And then we had an extra room upstairs. We were so spoiled with that house. I didn't appreciate at all the space that I had until I didn't have it anymore. Yeah, that was crazy. But anyway, now looking at it, I'm so excited to have the kitchen and then the dining table. I'm going to make food and we're going to sit at the dining table and eat the food. Oh, I know it's so stupid, but the kitchen is effectively, it's like a kitchen diner. But because we've got the doors in, we could make it a separate space. And that is what I'm most excited about. Not changing bedrooms, not even the office. I'm excited about the office and a filming space all the time, but that is not the thing that I'm most excited about. The thing that I'm most excited about, most, is the dining area. And then we're going to put our little blue sofa around in the Snog, have a TV in there, and we'll put the games consoles there so the kids can come downstairs and play. Again, it's a separate area for them to be outside of their bedrooms. If they don't want to be in the living room with us, they've still got an area that they can kind of sit and watch TV. Another reason that it's just not necessary for Ella to move rooms. I think I'm going to get a little bed settee for in here as well. So if she wanted to have sleepovers or something, or if we had people over, she could sleep in here. There's a TV, that's the plan. But that's the thing, because so many people asked, what is my thing that I'm most excited about? What are we going to do with that space? That is the thing I'm most excited about. Having a kitchen just to myself and opening those doors and having all that space. It's going to be absolutely crazy. Do you plan to do any major building or renovation work? Eventually, we really would like to change the kitchen. It's not what we chose when we moved in, although it's a new build. We didn't actually choose those things ourselves. We bought the house. We got a deal. And we bought the house already built and someone else had pulled out at the last minute. So we didn't get to choose anything. There's a lot of things I would like to change in terms of fitting, but we would really like a new kitchen. The kitchen we've had has effectively been extra used because everything's had double the use that it should have. Everything. So although it's only 4 years old, it's kind of like it's 8 years old. So at some point, but that's down the line, we don't have the finances to do that right now because everything's going into this, and we'll also need to furnish extra areas of the house. What will we do? The shed, again, I don't quite know yet, but I think maybe some kind of gym. What colours the downstairs bathroom going to be? I think funky wallpaper of some kind, leaning towards pink at the moment. Favourite part of your house right now? The living room. I took so much stuff out of there knowing that we were going to move. And then we didn't. I really downsized. And then as I was decluttering, I thought, well, we don't need all these units anymore because most of them are empty. So I took them out. I'm going to do closer to the time, because I'm getting some blinds that are coming, like a living room tour, because it's changed massively. Someone else asked, are you going to do another like whole house tour once it's just yours? Yes. Just so that you can kind of see the massive difference. What was your budget for the new house? Curious of house prices, difference to the South Coast. So I talk to Chris and Emma about this quite frequently because they can't believe how much cheaper it is to live up north. The house that we were looking at was like 230, 235,000, you know, depending on, I think they were going to push us to 235, but we got it to 230. That's not a lot of money up, you know, down south. Here, that was only a 3-bedroom semi. We now have like a 4-bedroom detached house with a lot more space downstairs. We're in a more built up area. We're in an estate rather than it being kind of like that particular house. What really sold me on it was in the garden, you couldn't see another house. It was amazing. But the house itself was much smaller, so the space would have been limited. But yeah, you can get houses for a lot cheaper up here. What else? What one big change would you like to do but won't right now? That would probably be the kitchen. Love to know your thoughts on living in a new build compared to an older house. So we've lived in, I think my first house was like a 70s house. Then I lived in a 30s house, which I do love that style of house, but the bills are more expensive. Then I lived in a house that was about 15, 20 years old. So a new build, but not that new. It makes not a tremendous amount of difference. I think that the bills, you know, it's more efficient, so the bills were less. But I think most of it is like character. I really like that this house, for a new build, the rooms are big, the ceilings are high for a new build. And I like the layout of this house a lot. Like it's so weird. The landing, it's because it's all accessible. So the landing and the hallway downstairs bathroom is massive. Like it's everything so effectively. You could get a wheelchair easily down all of these spaces. But because it's accessible, everything feels very spacious, which is unusual for a new build. In our old house, everything felt very crammed in. And so I don't think this is like a regular new build, but it hasn't got the same character that an older house would have. What would you change in your current house to make it your forever home? Again, I don't think it would be a forever home. Well, I mean, you know, I don't know. I do like that our friends next door moved in thinking it was like a long-term home for them to raise a family in. And I think that's part of it. We are in a different stage of life in that we're not starting our family. It's not like we're ending our family, but our kids are older. And so we're already looking at, well, we're not going to add to our family. We don't need an extra bedroom just in case. We could have probably downsized and just made sure that we had a good amount of downstairs space. We wanted an extra reception room so the kids can kind of spread out and have like a second living area. That was the main thing we were looking for. Whereas people starting their family, obviously, like, 4-bedroom house, perfect. It's, you know, just in case you have 3 kids. But I don't know. Or a tour telling us of the things we're going to do. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. I think that's actually the last question. I think I've either answered the question or it's been like a repeat of another question. Yeah, I think that's all of the questions. But a tour telling you all the things I might do, that would be quite interesting. Maybe I could use the tour that I already have and kind of talk you through in this room. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's a mood board of like my ideas. Let me know. This has been so long. This has been a way longer video than I anticipated. I thought we'd just kind of like get through these questions so fast. Not so much. Apologies. So long. But hopefully it was entertaining, useful in some way. It's not useful, is it? But, you know, it might have answered some questions that you've always had. And I know that some people desperately want to know things and just don't want to ask because you don't want to be rude. But don't worry. Someone else will be rude on your behalf. It's fine. I'm going to go now. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. There's going to be more home content in the future, and also just generally so much more excited about the whole YouTube thing because I'm going to have space to do it. I'm going to have dedicated space to YouTube, which is so exciting. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.